Welcome to Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk. And this, my friends, is The Thunder Show, aka the internet's most passionate wine program. And today we are touching on a subject that in a lot of parts of the world are pretty controversial wines. We're talking about Super Tuscan wines. Now, did you know that Super Tuscan is not an official term? It is not recognized by the governing body in Italy. It is actually a slang term that came to us through American critics. I think, I'm trying to go off the top of my head, some people claim Parker created it. I think that's possible. I'm not totally sure on that. But what I do know is that it's a term that we came up with here in the States that is very much laughed at, scoffed at, looked down upon in the rest of the world. Super Tuscan. But it's a great categorization of wines that don't follow the traditional rules of what is allowed in the Tuscan region. And so what I'm talking about is there's, rules to get a DOC or DOCG classified wine. You have to use a certain amount of Sangiovese. It has to be from a certain area. And what these wines are, you'll notice all three of these wines have a term down below that says IGT. And what the IGT means is typical regional wine, and 85% of the wines have to come from that region. The grapes are from that region. But the IGT designate, which came much later, because all of these wines in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, before the IGT classification, were really VDTs, Vinitola, table wines, even though they were very expensive. What happened was the owner of Sassicaia at the time came to Tuscan region in the 40s and recognized that the land and the soil very much reminded him of the Grave in Bordeaux. And he felt, why should I plant Sangiovese when I can plant Cabernet and Merlot? And that's what he did. And it was very much an under-the-radar wine in the 50s and 60s. And then finally, the wines were so good and so many people in inner circles there that were drinking the wine recognized its quality, that he felt that he could come out with the wine, because this was very controversial, couldn't really do it in a way, came out with a wine called Sassicaia in 1968. The wine came out and got huge critical reviews. Everybody loved it. Newspapers at the time, there weren't the Wine Spectators or Robert Parkers of the world, but the other critics in the world and newspapers and mailing lists and whatever else they had back then, catalogs, all ranted and raved about the Sassicaia, and it gained very huge notoriety. It was a very expensive VDT table wine, where most VDTs at the time were $2. This was a $20 or $30 or $40 wine at the time. I really don't know that as well, but it was very expensive. This spurred an entire movement. Antinori then brought out Tignanello in 1971, and then Celaya in 1978, and there was just this whole movement, and so many more Super Tuscans popped up in the 90s. What it really did was these Super Tuscan wines, these VDTs, IGTs, these wines really allowed more creativity and really pushed the envelope of advances in the Tuscan region, because at the time, a lot of people don't like to admit it, but the Chiantis and the wines of Tuscany were really looked upon as commodity wines, and were starting to lose a lot of their flair, and it needed a resurgence. And so much like what Mr. Mondavi did, and we talked about that on Monday, or Tuesday, excuse me, I think the same thing could be said for what Sassicaia ended up doing. He had a real great rationale to why he wanted to make this wine, given the soil types and his principles. People have not followed that quite as much now. It's more of a marketing play and looking for scores. But the fact that it's blending and giving people more balance, and the rules weren't containing these winemakers, has opened up for much more interesting wine, in my opinion. And so we're going to highlight three Super Tuscans today on The Thunder Show. So, wine number one. Teta Bianca, 2004, Campaccio. This wine is a very interesting blend of 70% Sangiovese and 30% Cabernet Sauvignon. This has been a very long time big winning wine in our shop. This one has scored 91 points by Galani. And Galani is reviewing wines for Robert Parker. Antonio is a good critic, and I like his reviews. It rolls in at $27 US, which is a very fair price given where the euro is right now, and given where the Super Tuscan wines are in the scheme of things. We have seen a softening of demand for these wines over the last 5 years, but it'll be interesting to see as people are walking away a little bit from the fruit bombs to see if we're going to have a little bit of a resurgence. Now, these wines are very big and explosive as well, don't get me wrong, but definitely have a little bit more of the Italian in them, a little bit of more of a sharpness and a freshness and an acidity that we don't see from some of the New World wines. Good color, sniffy sniff. Now this has got a very interesting nose. I almost get a little bit of almost like a V8 spritzer, right? Have you seen these V8 juices, right? It's almost like a strawberry meets tomato juice kind of thing going on. Very earthy and fruity. Not earthy, vegetal, but not even almost vegetal, almost like saucy. This wine's saucy. It's got a good little like grape jelly component coming through on the nose as well. There's also like a hint of mayonnaise coming through on the nose. Very interesting. Almost like a sandwich. Like a sun-dried tomato mozzarella sandwich. Mayonnaise-y kind of. With like some red jam on top. Very interesting. I like the nose. Let's give it a whirl. Good acidity, nice freshness. There's a little hint of like leather. I don't like the alcohol spiking a tad on the back end. Nice tannins. I get an eggplant component. Very heavy eggplant component on the back end. Mixed in with a little bit of dry leaves, like really dried out leaves. Little cactus action, almost like just dry desert in my mouth. But the eggplant is the overriding flavor with a little bit of plum skin coming through as well. An interesting wine, good back-end tannins. I get some Asian spices coming through, just like, a casual red pepper, oregano kind of thing going on as well. A little like pizza topping kind of thing going on. I like the mid-palate of this wine. But the finish is a little lacking, and it is a little bit boring. It's well made and structured. I'd very much like to see it with a pork chop right now. Bloop. Wish this was a show, right? We had editing. So I would love to. This is a very much more of a food-friendly wine. Solid effort. I don't agree with Galani's assessment score-wise. To me, this is more of an 88-point wine. It's very nice. I like it, but it's not killing me, and it's definitely not changing my life. At 27 bones, it's fair. It's just standard practice, I guess. I think there's a lot of Chianti Classicos that I can have. They're starting rolling at this price range too. Fact of the matter is it's lacking pizzazz. It's lacking a hoopla factor, and it's just really kind of standard. There's a lot of wine out there like this, and so that's how I kind of view it. Let's move on. Cabernet from Il Borgo. 2001 Cabernet. This wine is 91 points wine advocate and 91 points wine spectator, 70% Sangiovese, 30% Cabernet. Same thing as the last wine, 15 months in oak. Let's see what's going on. A little worried about those 15 months. Could bring out the oak monster, and we're all scared of the oak monster. Let's give it a whirl. I'm messy. A sniffy sniff mop, because that's what we do on the Thunder Show, my man. Now this is functified. I get a very obvious bacon, almost like, when you take out the bacon and the pan, you still smell the bacon. Go ahead, Mott, smell it. I see you're kind of interesting. Yeah, I know. The nose is, the nose is taking over the room. But it's got a little bit of a bacon thing going on. It's also got a little funky kind of thing going on. Little like, dorm room corner, like, sorry, I haven't washed my clothes in 6 months kind of thing going on. And almost like a match, like a lit match, kind of like a sulfur kind of thing going on. I know everybody's where they're going to go with this, but it's a little more subtle. It's a little bit more campfire smoke in the background. Memorial Day like, right? It's like a barbecue. It's the smoke's in the air. And not bad. actually very Memorial Day at a college campus, right? Like everybody's packing up to leave. They finished, school for the semester. I know it's a little late. People leave a little earlier, but let's just go with me here. There's barbecue going in the background, and you go for the laundry in the corner. You're going to plop it in because you haven't done laundry the last month because you're like, Mom, do it, because no reason, because you're about to go home. And so that's what's kind of coming through on this nose. Also throw in a little cherry, and you've got the bouquet. Let's give it a whirl. Much more polished. Wow. Much more polished than the last wine. Definitely more oomph. Is there a little? There is a little. But that's okay, because we've shook hands. We're embracing each other, and we're at truths. It's got some really good mouthfeel. Really enjoying the subtle oakiness. A little wood. Never heard anybody to have a little wood in their mouth, Mott. And that's what I'm feeling in this wine. There's also some nice raspberry flavors coming on. I like the pepper, which is subtle, but there. I also appreciate the roasted peppers. Green, yellow, red colors. I like them. Roasted peppers, they're in my mouth. I enjoy them. Good, solid collectiveness of all these flavors while balanced, and a good long finish. A little woody, a little smoky, very elegant, very positive that this is a flavor profile that a lot of people would like, including heavy Cabernet drinkers. (2001). It's got a little bit more age to it, and you can taste the refinement. I really like the long, balanced finish. This is a good wine. I'd love to have this with hanger steak. This is a wine that I think could be open for 2 to 3 hours and really open up nicely. It's also a wine that shows a lot of fruit, and my shirt's back already, man. Bring it over here, man. I mean, this is great. Only 3 days later, Thank you. 3 days later, it came and it's clean. Amazing. Thank you so much. This is the kind of wine that I would love to have with food. This is a perfect example if you're looking for something serious to give away as a gift or to collect, put in your cellar for 5 years. This to me is the kind of wine I want to recommend to people. When I wore the hat of buying for Wine Library, this would be a wine that I would go for because it's going to hit a lot of people. Drinkable, can put away, great gift, very polished, very much covering enormous amount of people in this wine. It's got the fruit, it's got the complexity. Bordeaux lovers would love it, Cabernet lovers would love it. Kudos, great job on the Cabrera. I'm going to go along with Wine Advocate and Wine Spectator and go trifecta on the 91 points, Mott, because that's how we roll when we get very exciting wine. This is what I do it for. It's amazing to me. The last wine and this wine, same price range, same wine on paper, 91 points, right? Everybody would think similar, and just a totally different experience, in my opinion. A far better wine with a lot more fruit and a lot more elegance, and I'm into it. And now I'm dying to try this. We did this show because I wanted to try this. This is the Salon-go from Artigiano, and I've also been a big fan of this wine for a long time. 2004 vintage, 93 points, Antonio Galani, 67 US dollars, 45% Cabernet, 30% Merlot, and 25% Syrah. Very interesting blend, almost really a third across the board. No, of course not, but pretty close to being Cab, Syrah, Merlot. Salon-go has been a huge wine with big press through the years. Very sought after. We've been selling boatloads of these wines for a long time. This is the new vintage. I have not tried it, so I'm excited to see what's going on. Let's pour a little bit out for all the Vaniacs that couldn't be here with us, and let's give it a little bit of a sniffy sniff. Very tight nose. I like the strawberries that are coming through in this wine. There's an elegance to that. There's almost like a burnt leather, almost like, you really, you made an error in the outfield, Mott, and you blame it on the glove and you throw it down, you just light it on fire, you want to, it's like tennis. I used to always blame the racket, but it's not the racket. So you're burning your glove in left field. That's what's going on a little bit with this wine, along with the strawberries. Let's give it a whirl. Good fruit, very polished, very new world. We're going a little fun dip here, little nerds candies, and you're opening up both slots. You know what I'm talking about. all the way in there. Lots and lots of candy aspects to this wine. Good polish, good elegance, nice firm plum. Plum till your daddy comes home in the mid-palate. Enormous amounts of plum coming through. I'm going to say plum again just because I think it's funny. Plum. There's an absolute plum flavor in this wine. Rounded out with candy, fun dip. What's the straw? What was the straw? Pixie sticks. Thank you so much. It's that powdered grape, strawberry, cherry flavors kind of things going on. Very sugarified. Good firm tannins on the back end. Kind of bitter tannins, awkward tannins, but that's because it's a very youthful wine. But I gotta be honest, I'm not very impressed with this wine. I actually am a little bit bored with it. It's got good fruit. It really reminds me, to be honest with you, of a lot of $30 Cabernets. You know, it's from California. It's got good ripe fruit. It's got a little bit of oakiness to it, a little hint of vanilla. I do get a nice little cedar component. I almost get like a maple or oaky kind of flavor on this one. Not oaky. Maple or dogwood. If you've ever had, you know, like dogwood trees, kind of interesting. I kind of get a little bit of that going on here as well. It's kind of an interesting balance between a lot of fruit and candy and this over-the-top ripeness, and a little bit more subtleness on the back end. Kind of like a two-part play. Very different in both sections. I don't find a synergy of this wine. It's young. It can definitely come together over time. This has been opened, decanted, and poured back in for about 4 hours. So I'm going to say it's kind of in that range of being a little bit disappointing to me. At 67 bones, in no comparison to Cabernet, in my opinion. Just a far more interesting polished wine. It's a 2001 vintage, so it's had some bottle age. Do not underestimate what a wine can do in the bottle. And I think 3 or 4 years from now, it'd be fun to see where this wine is. But because a lot of people consume a lot of wine very young, and just overall, because I think it's a bland effort. I think it's really become a textbook wine. They kind of do what they do, and they're not pushing the envelope. I'm finding it a tad boring. I'm going to score the wine 90 points. I think it's a good wine. That's why I'm giving it 90 points. But I just would not spend my 67 bones, Mott. No way am I rolling out 3 20s, a 5, and 2 singles on this wine. No way. And that's before tax. So, I'm going to give it a pass. And I'm going to say the Cabernet dominated, in my opinion, this effort. And look at that. It's like a, looks can be deceiving, right? Look at the bottle and everything. Very interesting wine world we're living in. Big shout out to True Fabrications, the whole company. They just stop and watch the show, man. They're in Seattle, Washington. Good people. Thank you so much for watching the show. I want to remind everybody, the Father's Day, June 4th prize for the new wristband. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Mott, link it up. Obviously, what you're going to need to do is go to yesterday's episode, take a little snippet out. You're going to be linking that up the whole time up to the June 4th thing. So if you don't know what we're talking about, watch a little snippet. Mott, do you know what you're doing? Make a note. You know what's going on. Question of the day. What is your favorite Italian wine as of right now? Your favorite all-time Italian wine. And if you get a chance, folks, reach out and drink some Cabernet because really, really good stuff. It's very fascinating to me what's going on with super Tuscan wines. They got real expensive. We used to sell them when I first got into the business really hardcore because they're like 20, 30 bucks. Big Parker scores. Everybody was loving them. And then they just got real expensive and seemed like overnight vanished the interest levels. Everybody went to Spain and Australia. So to me, once the euro and dollar even itself out in the next, hopefully 5 years, I'll be very fascinated to see if Italy's able to rejuvenate its interest levels, because if it's not, and the wines are available and not selling, I kind of predict, and that's what I'm doing here right now, I'm just chilling with you guys, I kind of predict a time in the next 4 or 5 years when we're doing the Thunder Show together, and we're at episode, 2000, and I'll be sitting here and saying, for $40, when all the other wines are $100, these Super Tuscans are real values. I honestly think that the demand is so soft right now, and I don't see a growing culture of the Italian Super Tuscan industry embracing new media or Web 2.0 or having a marketing plan outside of getting good scores to get people back into the wines that I think we'll see in a pocket in 36 months from now, some real buying opportunities. And to me, when you can have real wine like this, with real flavors, really reminds me of like very good Bordeaux. You know, there's opportunity, so I like opportunity, Mott. That's what we're here for. QPR, quality price ratio. We're drinking bad wines, so you don't have to. Because you, with a little bit of me, we're changing the wine.